grief. It's the brain's most misunderstood storm. Not simply sadness, not just pain, but a neurological hijack that reshapes who we are and how we act. When loss strikes, it doesn't just break the heart, it rewires the mind. And at the center of that storm sits a small, almond-shaped structure, the amygdala. The same part of the brain that once kept our ancestors alive in the wilderness now becomes the architect of our emotional chaos. Think about John Wick. His story begins not with revenge, but with grief. A man who's lost everything, his wife, his peace, and then, in one senseless act, the last fragile connection to love. The moment his dog dies, something ancient ignites inside him. It's not just rage, it's the brain's survival system, firing as if loss were a predator. Inside the brain, grief is almost indistinguishable from physical pain. Functional MRI scans show that the same neural circuits that activate when we're burned or cut also light up during emotional loss. The anterior cingulate cortex, the insula, and, most powerfully, the amygdala. This is the alarm bell of the brain, responsible for detecting threats and triggering emotional intensity. When someone we love is taken from us, the amygdala can't tell the difference between a physical attack and an emotional one. It fires off the same cascade: adrenaline, cortisol, and a surge of stress chemistry. That's why grief feels like panic, why time distorts, why your chest tightens, as if you're bracing for impact. The amygdala doesn't see loss as an absence, it interprets it as danger, and in that confusion, grief can turn a protector into a weapon. For most people, the pain of grief softens with time. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's reasoning center, steps in, calming the amygdala, processing memories, helping us make meaning. But when grief remains unresolved, when denial hardens into obsession or guilt, the circuitry shifts. The dopamine system, responsible for motivation and reward, begins to collapse. Neuroscientists call this a dopamine deficit, or what some researchers have named dopamine debt. We crave relief, any small hit of purpose, closure, or justice, because the brain has lost its sense of reward. It's this vacuum that often fuels the transformation we see in characters like John Wick or the Punisher. Grief becomes mission, pain becomes focus. Not because they want revenge, but because the brain, desperate to escape emotional paralysis, mistakes vengeance for restoration. Denial isn't weakness, it's a form of neurological first aid. In the first stage of grief, the prefrontal cortex shields us from emotional overload, but when denial lingers too long, it backfires. The amygdala keeps sounding alarms. The hippocampus, which organizes memory, gets flooded with stress hormones, and the prefrontal cortex can no longer keep up. We lose our emotional executive control. That's when grief becomes aggression or numbness or withdrawal. In Wick's world, denial detonates into a mission. His body is calm, but his brain is on fire, running on a loop of hypervigilance and loss. Each violent act is the amygdala's distorted attempt to restore equilibrium, to end the alarm. But violence, like avoidance, only amplifies the echo. Brain imaging has shown that in both grief and aggression, the same neural pathways often light up, particularly between the amygdala, the insula, and the periaqueductal gray, the region tied to defensive rage. It's as if the brain confuses loss with threat, sorrow with survival. That's what makes grief so primal. It can make a gentle person lash out, or a hero abandon reason. It's not moral failure. It's neurobiology misfiring under pressure. The mind thinks, if I destroy the cause of my pain, I'll stop feeling it. But in truth, The amygdala can't be silenced by vengeance, only by safety, by restoring the brain's sense that connection is still possible. Healing the grieving brain isn't about forgetting, it's about rebalancing the circuitry. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change, allows us to slowly retrain those alarm systems. When we talk about our loss, when we write, when we connect, we re-engage the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus, reminding the amygdala that the danger has passed. That's why rituals of mourning, storytelling, funerals, letters, even art exist in every culture. They aren't just spiritual, they're neurological. They rebuild the dialogue between logic and emotion so that grief becomes integrated, not buried. In that moment, when he stops fighting, when revenge gives way to reflection, that's not weakness, that's neuroregulation. His brain is remembering peace. Neuroscientists now understand that grief doesn't vanish, it transforms. The amygdala may always retain traces of that alarm, but the prefrontal cortex learns to reinterpret it. Where once there was panic, there can be meaning. Where there was loss, there can be empathy. Studies on long-term mourners show increased activation in brain regions linked to compassion and creativity. It's as if, through surviving grief, the mind becomes more deeply human. And that's the paradox of loss. The same system that can destroy us is also capable of building resilience. Every act of remembrance, every conversation, every breath taken after heartbreak is the brain healing itself, one synapse at a time. Grief is not the villain. It's the proof that we've loved deeply, that somewhere inside the chaos, the amygdala is still trying to protect what matters most. For John Wick, that meant fighting from memory. For the rest of us, it means learning to live with it, to let grief be the fire that reshapes us, not the one that consumes us.